My name's Kevin Tanner, and I have the honor of serving as the chairman of the House Transportation Committee, and I've also had the pleasure of serving for this last year as the House Transit Governance and Funding Commission chairman. Many of our fellow commission members are here in the audience today, and I want to thank each one of them for all their hard work over the last year. I especially want to thank Speaker Ralston for his visionary leadership on this issue for the last several years, but specifically by creating this special commission and putting such an emphasis on moving transit forward in this region. It's something that's been talked about for decades now. It's something we've struggled with for decades, but under his leadership and that of Governor Deal, we are now getting ready to do something that I believe is going to be transformational as it relates to transit here in the metro region. We've lagged behind in this area, and Georgia leads on most issues, and I think because of what the governor is getting ready to do today, we're getting ready to lead in the area of transit. So I'm excited about that. I appreciate the partnerships we've been able to build over the last year, and I want to thank again the Speaker and the Governor for all of their support today. I also want to thank my counterpart in the Senate, and I'm going to introduce him now, Chairman Beach, for his hard work over the past year, and want to ask him to come up and say a few words. Chairman Beach.
Well, thank you, Chairman Tanner. What a great day for transit, regional transit. What a great day for economic development, and what a great day for quality of life. Before we get started, I personally want to thank Governor Deal. Governor Deal, I want to thank you not just for this bill, but House Bill 170, the Savannah Port, all the infrastructure that you've done over the years in your 2 terms has been vitally important to economic development, so I want to thank you. Let's give him a round of applause. I also want to thank the Lieutenant Governor who's out campaigning today. He was unable to be with us, and the Speaker of the House. And then I want to thank everybody in this room, because when I tell people all the time, sometimes passing motherhood and apple pie down here is not easy. But when you try to do a heavy lift like this, it's all hands on deck. And everybody, I can't thank everybody personally, but I want to thank everybody for what you did. And what we're getting ready to sign today is I think, historic legislation. And one of the things that Chairman Tanner and I both agreed on from the very beginning was that we didn't want to take over MARTA, we didn't want to take over Gwinnett, we didn't want to take over Cobb. We wanted it to be very partnership-driven and customer-centric driven. And what House Bill 930 does is it creates the framework for the region to come together to where you can cross jurisdictional lines from county to county. And that's very important. And I think what we're going to have in the end is a regional transit entity in 13 counties called the ATL, and I'm really proud of that, and I'm proud of all the hard work for all of you. And Chairman Tanner, thank you for all your hard work. With that, I'm going to turn it over now to the Speaker of the House, and Speaker Ralston, thank you again for all you did.
Thank you very much, Chairman Beach, and to Chairman Tanner, and to the Governor, and to all of you who are here today, thank you. We stand here today to witness the signing of legislation that I believe probably at least seemed impossible just a decade ago. House Bill 930 represents a fundamental change in Georgia from focusing on the past toward now a focus on our collective future. It signifies our willingness and our commitment to work together to see Atlanta and the entire state move forward while maintaining local control. Transit has a bright future in Georgia. It has the potential to help us relieve traffic congestion, improve freight logistics, and increase economic growth. I want to give a shout out to those who joined us in this collaborative process, groups like the Metro Chamber and the Georgia Chamber of Commerce. I also want to thank MARTA and its leadership team, including former CEO Keith Parker, current CEO Jeffrey Parker, and Board Chair Robbie Ash for their partnership. I also want to express my appreciation to the leadership of the Senate, including President Pro Tem Butch Miller, Transportation Chairman Brandon Beach, and Majority Whip Steve Gooch, along with Rules Chairman Jeff Mullis, who's looking for a train station, I understand, in Chickamauga. I particularly want to thank Lieutenant Governor Casey Cagle. Lieutenant Governor Cagle was instrumental in making today possible, was invested in this process, and while he couldn't be with us today, I want to applaud his steadfast commitment to seeing that House Bill 930 was signed into law. Finally, let me thank the legislative members of the House Commission on Transit Governance and Funding for leading this conversation. Chairman Jason Shaw, Chairman Tom Taylor, Majority Whip Chris Coomer, Representative Mary Margaret Oliver, and a very vital member of the House and of this commission, the Dean of our House, Representative Calvin Smyrie. And most of all, I want to thank an insightful leader who excels in building trust one relationship at a time. When this process began, I bet most of you didn't think that the champion for Metro Atlanta's transit needs would call Dawsonville home. But he does. So please help me join with me in thanking Chairman Kevin Tanner for all of his work. Chairman Beach has mentioned the leadership of Governor Deal in terms of transit, in terms of transportation infrastructure, and in terms of the Savannah Port. Governor Deal is going to leave a huge positive legacy here in Georgia, and nowhere will that be greater than in transportation. And with that, let me introduce to the podium at this time a dear friend and a great, great leader, our 82nd Governor of Georgia, Governor Nathan Deal.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I continue to be amazed by the leadership you provide to all of us, and I thank you for being a moving figure in what we're about to do today. Certainly to our two chairmen, Chairman Tanner and Chairman Beach, they have carried the extraordinary burden of trying to corral enough attention and votes to be able to get this bill on my desk. And certainly the others who are here on the stage behind me and their colleagues all deserve a lot of credit. Now, this bill is transformational in many ways. What it does is it gives us a polite yet forceful way of getting around regional jealousies and suspicions that have plagued us for far too long in the arena of transit. Now it will be up to all of us to demonstrate that we can work for the good of the people in our respective communities, while at the same time recognizing that we are an important part of a chain and a network that encompasses at least the 13 counties that make up the region that this bill is addressing. Believe it or not, people are coming to our state of Georgia. I'm told that more than 100,000 new residents have moved to the metro area in the last year. No wonder our roads are getting congested. And if you look, as I have said several times, if you look at the location of the tags that are on those cars, they're coming from all over the country to be here in the metro area. And I don't think all of them are coming for the filming of The Walking Dead, which is taking place. In fact, I am told that the below the line, as they call it, employees for that very successful television series, which is filming another show here in the Capitol today, that 90% of those are Georgians who are working on the set, doing the behind-the-camera scenes that is important for that. So they are coming to Georgia, and we might as well get ready for it. Because if you think the 100,000 that came this last year is a lot, just listen to what the Atlanta Regional Commission projects for this Atlanta metro region by 2040. 2.5 million more people who will call Georgia home. So therefore, today is indeed a big day. I think we have with us here today not only the two chairmen, Kevin Tanner and Brandon Beach, but certainly the transportation committees that they chair, and many of those members are here. The members of the Transit Commission, Chris Tomlinson of our Georgia Regional Transit Authority, Dr. Yvette Taylor of the Federal Transit Administration, and, as has been indicated earlier, local transit system representatives that are here as well to witness this historical signing of House Bill 930, the Regional Transit Bill. Now, this concept is one that has been discussed for quite a while. In fact, Chairman Beach reminded me a few minutes ago, if I recalled our conversations of 5 or 6 years ago when we started talking about ATL. Well, ATL is here today, and I am very pleased to say that it is. This 13-county region is where much of the growth and economic activity of our state are taking place. The purpose of this bill is to be able to coordinate the planning and the funding for transit projects within this 13-county region. It will be administratively attached to the Georgia Regional Transportation Authority, GRETA, for shared administrative resources. The authority will be responsible for developing a regional transit plan, identifying and prioritizing projects and initiatives that will be required to develop a regional concept of transit. They will do so in consultation with the metropolitan planning organizations, and this plan will be developed for a 6 and a 20-year time horizon. And it will involve an analysis of all of the transit needs and the projects that will be needed to deal with those needs. Let me make it quite clear that this regional stakeholders, including local governments and those communities affected, will be able to submit requests to the ATL for additions and amendments to the plan based on changing conditions. House Bill 930 also expands transit-specific local sales and use tax, or T-SPLOST, empowering counties within the ATL to raise additional revenues of up to 1% for up to 30 years, if they so choose. Non-ATL counties may also partner with neighboring counties to adopt a T-SPLOST should they wish to benefit from this expansion. There is a second core responsibility of the ATL in addition to the development of the regional transit plan. This authority will be the sole entity responsible for transit coordination, branding, and planning, as well as the dispersion of federal and state funding for transit projects within the 13-county region. Let me also make it clear, however, that we are preserving the current operational and funding autonomy of MARTA. In short, the ATL will serve as a transit funding and governance structure for the region, helping to steer a unified vision of the future of transit in the Atlanta region. As our capital city and the surrounding area continues to grow, we will all need to be on the same page as it pertains to projects of regional significance. Now, I certainly appreciate the fact that the two chairmen worked on a bipartisan basis, and you see members of both parties represented here today for this ceremony. That is important. I believe this legislation is of equal, if not even greater significance than the transportation bill that we passed in 2015. That is House Bill 170. That one moved us substantially forward in terms of our traditional transportation issues. This one will move us forward in terms of our transit issues. And to reinforce the commitment that the General Assembly has demonstrated for this concept, we allocated $100 million for public transit projects in the budget that I signed yesterday for fiscal year 2019. This legislation recognizes that there are always growing pains, but if we are to function efficiently, those growing pains have to be coordinated and streamlined, and we have to find answers for those pains where we work together. We are indeed a 21st century state. It is time that we had a 21st century transit system that will continue to allow us to be the #1 state for many things, including business. So if all of you who are responsible for this being put on my desk will join me behind the table, I will sign the legislation, and then following that, and there will be a few pictures obviously, we will then return here to the podium, and I will be glad to entertain the questions that you might have, and I have the experts who can answer those questions if I cannot do so myself. If you all would join me at the table.
Questions?
All right, let's start with any questions that you might have. I guess we can go home, fellas. We can't hear you. How do I anticipate it?
How soon?
How soon? I don't know the answer to that. Brandon, you're sort of one of these 13 counties here.
Well, I think it's up to the counties when they want to go to ballot. They've got to get their project list. The governor will name a chairman within probably the next few months, and then the speaker will name 2 appointees, and then we'll get our caucus. Chairman Tanner and I will work on getting those elections done. So we create the board, and then we'll hopefully hear from the counties that want to come in. I know Commissioner Nash from Gwinnett is eagerly wanting to join, so I think they'll be very. And I saw Chairman Boyce here, and I know Cobb's looking at South Cobb. So. And Commissioner Hausman and Chairman Pitts, y'all are looking at the .20 and putting that on the ballot as soon as you can, come to a consensus with your mayors. So I think it's left up to those folks, but it's going to be sooner than later, and we're going to see this bill get into effect where we're going to be able to create a seamless, efficient, clean, and most of all safe ride through cross-jurisdictional lines.
Yeah, just to add to that, and since I've got the podium, I just want to thank our commissioners that are here. I see Cobb and Fulton and Gwinnett. Chairman Nash is here. I think within the next year, you're going to see these counties represented here, Cobb, Gwinnett, and Fulton County, take advantage of this legislation. And I think you're going to see major transit expansion start to take place within the next year based on what we've been able to do today.
Anyone else? Yes.
Somebody said up there that 10 years ago this bill couldn't pass. What's happened in the last 10 years that made this possible?
Well, you had a new governor since that time. Although I can't claim much credit for this, I just can't pass up an opportunity to joke with you. A lot of things have changed. Our population has continued to grow, which has put the pressure on finding solutions. And this legislation is about finding solutions. I think the attitudes of members of the General Assembly have changed over that period of time. And we have seen that change of attitude reflected not just in this legislation, but in other pieces of legislation as well. And I think that's a good thing. We all are thinking more strategically, I think, than we have had in the past. In the past, every county sort of did its own thing, took care of its own needs, and Atlanta would send them a little money every once in a while, and we'd try to take care of the roads. But now we recognize that the issues that face us and the growing concerns of people coming to our state are of such a nature that the traditional jump in your car and go to work is not the solution that is practical. And the changing attitude of the public is that many of the so-called millennials, that's not their mindset either. They don't want a car in many instances, which is mind-boggling to me. You know, I couldn't wait till I could get my first vehicle and have my own independence. But many of them would prefer to use public transportation, and that mindset is something that I think is totally new and has come in a relatively short and condensed time frame. But it is a major factor in terms of the reason this legislation moved as quickly as it did. Anybody want to add to my answer?
Well, I'll add this, that when we started talking about this 10 years ago, a lot of people were throwing rocks and arrows at me. And I will tell you that I think because of Governor Deal's leadership and us being the #1 state to do business, economic development drove it too. When you saw State Farm and Mercedes and Pulte Homes relocating around transit lines, I think that had a big impact on the changing of the attitudes also. But I've always said, and a lot of y'all have heard me say this, the people were ahead of the politicians on this issue, and that's why we finally got there also.
Okay, anyone else? Well, thank you all for being here. You will look back on this day as an important turning point in the future of our state. And you can tell your children and your grandchildren, I was there when the legislation was signed. Thank you for being here.